I've said this before. I don't believe that we should go for a Wilmington school district.
Okay.
I think we should be part of a district. And the reason for that is guys like Jim, Lou Redding, Lit Mitchell, all those people that came in the past struggled to open the doors up so that we could have an integrated society. What happened in the DSEG and all of that was they didn't deal with the economic disparities, the educational disparities when children enter automatically. Didn't do that. And then when you made it one big district, or four districts rather, when you turned it into 4 districts, what you did was you carved Wilmington up to where you can't have any concise working on education. I mean, you're dealing with we're dealing with 5 superintendents. That's counting the VOTEC.
Yeah, right.
5 superintendents. Our kids are all over the map, all over the place. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and we need to understand education begins at home. We should have early childhood education. If we're going to fight, let's fight for something that's meaningful. Early childhood education. There shouldn't be a child without it. I mean, we have 85.5% of families in Wilmington with children are headed by single women. 85.5%. When I was younger back, it was 14%. Look at the difference. I mean, the data just gets worse and worse and worse. And Jim's right. I mean, there's things we can do ourselves. We don't have to ask someone to take care of us to deal with these kind of issues. If I don't like you and I think your life isn't worth spit, then I got a problem.
You know, but
right?
Jim, but I keep calling both of you guys mayor. But you made an interesting point. You know, you said we have institutions like NAACP, Urban League, you know, and all
civic
these
groups, fraternities,
to take care of all churches. But we still got 7 out of 10 black males dropping out of school. You know, and you guys, I mean, and I'm hearing you, and I'm trying to figure out what is the answer.
I keep saying it. It's a new movement. We're still at the 60 level. We're still dealing with civil rights as if we're struggling for laws and things like that. The model is still the old model. What I'm saying is we need to change that model. We need to say what is it that you want people to do? You want them to get involved. Get involved in what? Where? How? I mean, we knew where to get involved. Jim used to hold demonstrations down on that vacant lot on Project A, right? You had a tent down there, and people used to come around. And they also had a what is it called? A People's Settlement Festival, or every year there was a festival where you brought people together just to.
Yeah, there was we used to have an African American festival. It started on the east side and later went to the Brandywine Park.
Do you think it's time for one school district? I mean, what's your opinion?
Well, you know, I think it's a myth to have assumed that when we had an old Wilmington school district that we had a great deal of African American unity, and I think it's a myth to claim that doing away with the old Wilmington school system and being a part of a larger integrated, first we had, as you know, one after the Wilmington school district was taken away by the federal courts. We had the one big Newcastle County school district, and later that was broken up into 4 school districts. But I think we use the desire to go back to the old one Wilmington school district as a way of finding that old unity that we used to have. Well, I'm not sure we had it, frankly.
We never had that. That's a misnomer. Unity is not what we were talking about. We were all different. The goals were the same.
Yeah.
That's the issue.
This is a fascinating conversation.
Well,
I'm enjoying it.
I was a Pan-Africanist. Jim was eventually the head of the NAACP and what you might call the desegregation and integrationist movement. There were others that were even farther. We had the Panthers. They were farther off. We had all kinds of people. You had the Mau Maus in New York. You had the Lords in the Hispanic community. There were so many different groups with so many different thought patterns. But the point was when we used to have those meetings at the Y, Walnut Street Y.
Sure, I remember well.
And there was all kind of arguing. I mean,
but do you have that now? Do we rally and argue for causes anymore? I mean, you understand what I mean?
No, but
people may argue a different kind of way, but I mean, you got
but we were in a room talking about specific goals to achieve.
But do we have that now?
No, we don't. You don't have that,
and that's not a good thing, I don't think.
Well, you got to reconstitute yourself. You can't still be back in the old days. It's just like what Jim was saying. You can't go backwards. You got to go forward. We've got the brightest people you can think of out there today. It's not just they, but there's younger people, there's older people that can get involved in a movement. It has to be a movement where we say we're working to achieve. If you don't do that, what happens is just what you see. Everybody in their own little silos or little pews, and you don't step on my toe because, you know, this and that and the other. And you got all these people making some kind of an assumption that they're the people that are going to come in and straighten everything out, and they're going to make everything happy in the neighborhoods and all that. It's not going to happen.
I get the feeling that you guys, I mean, basically, listen to what you're saying, that you had stuff to fight for. You stood for something. You know, in some cases, do the African American politicians and communities still fight like that? Or maybe there's a different kind of fight that we have to do?
Well, you know, going back to the pre-civil rights days and right after the civil rights days, the goals were generally pretty clear. Let's organize and advocate and make sure the man and and governmental institutions and corporations are doing more to be responsive to our needs and to help us achieve equality of opportunity. Well, we've made some progress in that arena. Obviously, a lot more needs to be done. But you know, we don't have the numbers politically to bring about the kind of dramatic changes that we've advocated. You know, Congress tends to act incrementally with respect to low-income people and African American people. We'll get a community action program in the 60s,
and then they take it away.
Model cities program in the 90s,
and they take it away.
Enterprise program in the late 90s. We've got to find a way to get those legislative bodies outside of cities, Congress, the state general assemblies, county councils, the governmental bodies that have the resources, and cities generally don't. Our revenue base has declined. A lot of the professional people with middle incomes have moved out. So strategically, we've got to find a way to have greater influence on those legislative bodies that are in a position to help.
But let me respectfully disagree.
Okay.
Right? I mean, we have school board elections where felons and everyone can vote. Everybody. Anyone 18 years old, you could just got out of jail. Long as you can walk and breathe, you can vote. We still get 12%, and this is really affecting our communities.
But again,
hear me out. I believe he's right.
No, he's right.
They can vote.
But you're trying to make it sound like they've got a cause and a reason.
The kids are dropping out of school. That's not a good enough cause?
They may not think of it that way. You have to couch everything in a way that people feel connected. That's what.
I understand what he's saying. I understand.
People need to feel connected to the causes that you're trying to advocate.
But what bigger cause can you have if we have a dropout rate in our communities that are horrendous?
But you're talking about 4 districts. It's not like just getting 1 guy or 2 guys elected to 1 school district.
I understand, but do you agree with me though? That's not a big enough cause to say, oh, we got to rally.
It is in some degree. I think again you got to couch the issues in very clear terms, and people have to understand how do they fit in. Not everybody wants to be fighting over education. Not everybody wants to fight over jobs or housing or whatever else. Listen, for example, Senator Holloway introduced the Fair Housing Bill, I think 10 years in a row before he could get it passed. Mm-hmm. Okay? Now, that's just political realities there. Mm-hmm. You can't always just say we're going to change it like this. It's a really an idea that you got a cause for achievement. That's why people do what they do. You didn't run just to run for mayor because it's nice. Mm-hmm. You don't,
no, I did not.
You did not do that.
I'm listening to you guys.
But I don't think that you can say, like politically, there is not enough political clout across the state wide for African Americans so that it can influence beyond the borders of Wilmington. Because what happens is people look at us when I was in office anyways, I got calls all over the state to help people, and that's not happening elsewhere. You just can't say because it's an issue that's what everybody ought to be. That doesn't work that way.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, Norman, you inherent in your response were a whole set of problems, but you did mention, at least I inferred from what you said, that we got the right to vote, and apparently we're not taking advantage of it to the extent that we should. The felons can vote even in school board elections, but apparently we don't. Right. We need more people to vote. There's no question about that. We need more effective political people to represent us. But and this is where we need to have greater consensus on the need for new strategical goals.
Right.
We need more people voting, but we also need to better understand the need to do things in between elections.
I agree with that.
We don't do enough, and we don't yet realize the importance of influencing the legislative process in between elections. I was a member of the Delaware General Assembly, and I know legislation tends to be highly influenced by paid lobbyists and organized union leaders and special interest groups. They influence legislation as it goes through the committees, and they help determine what gets on the agenda for the General Assembly to take action on. In between elections, I was in the General Assembly 10 years, as I said, and there were very few instances where organized citizen groups came to the Delaware General Assembly to demand that certain kinds of policies get adopted or certain pieces of legislation be enacted. We tend to get involved in voting, especially in general elections, but we haven't yet developed haven't yet realized the need to develop strategies for influencing the legislative process in between elections.